can see the kidney. There's the main organ there. This is your kidney. Okay, big blue thing right there. You have a renal vein and a renal artery. The renal arteries are more round. If you look at them, they're more cylindrical because they're high pressure. Veins are low pressure, so they collapse a little bit more. So if you look at the arteries there, bring this down here, you can see how they're round shaped. Look at the renal vein, you can see how that's kind of squish shaped. Okay, that's, you can tell the difference between the renal artery and the renal vein. The renal pelvis. The renal pelvis is the area where the major calyx drains into for the kidney just before it goes into the ureter. So it goes through the kidney, gets filtered, goes through all your pyramids and all your lobules, comes through the proximal convoluted tubule, the descending loop, ascending loop, distal convoluted tubule, dumps into collecting ducts, and then it goes into the minor calyx, your major calyx, your renal pelvis, then into the ureter. That's where the renal pelvis comes in. Okay, opening the kidney up from the mid-sagittal section, you see a cortex and medulla. Cortex on every single organ is the outside. Medulla means inside. Okay, so cortex is your outside, medulla is your inside. There's your minor calyces, which is your minor calyx, which is where your renal collecting tubes drain into. Then you get the major calyx, which is what the minor calyx is drained into. Then the major calyx drains into the renal pelvis, like you said, and the renal pelvis drains into the ureter, which flows into the urinary bladder. Okay, you can also see the segmental arteries run. If you're looking at this picture, like we're looking at it, it runs out of the screen towards you. Okay, these are your renal, your segmental arteries. It loops around the kidney this direction. So it's kind of coming out three-dimensionally for you and runs around that direction, dives in. That's your segmental arteries. And you have your renal artery. Again, you see what's round shaped here, where this renal artery is pointing to. And then the renal vein, which is a little more squished behind you. It's a hard time seeing that one. But your renal artery is a lot more rounded. And then your interlobular veins, the veins that run in between the lobes of the kidneys. Did I get all that? Yeah. Okay, so more detailed section of the kidney. You see the renal pyramids, where there's different pyramidal structures. Okay, each lobule is separated into pyramids. So those are your renal pyramids. Okay, you see where they're located more in towards the medulla. You have your interlobular arteries, arteries between the lobes of the kidney. You have your renal columns. Right? Remember, the columns are between the pyramids that make it part of the kidney on the internal section. You have your minor calyces, okay, where the collecting tubules drain into. The ureter, which can drain from the renal pelvis into the urinary bladder. Okay, and there's the renal pelvis where everything drains into before it goes into the ureter. Your minor calyces drain your major calyces drain into the renal pelvis. And then you see the renal vein. You can see this vein here, it's kind of squished. If you take that blue layer off of it, you can see it's kind of squished, and your renal artery is more around it. There's your renal artery. And there's your major calyces, which the minor calyces drain into. So far, so good. Nobody's stopping me, so I see everybody understands. Okay, again, side view of the kidney. You can see the renal pyramids. Those are the different sections that are lobulated off inside the kidney. You can see the renal columns, which divide in between the lobules. You can see the interlobular arteries that run through each lobule. Then you can see the minor calyx. This one's been cut open, but this is a minor calyx. You have the cortex of the kidney, which is the outside layer. You have the interlobular vein and interlobular artery on the other side of it. You can see that. The vein, again, if you look at the two, you see the artery right there and see a vein right there. Okay, you can see how the artery's more roundish. Veins are more squished. Then you got the ureter, which drains into the urinary bladder from the renal pelvis and then from the major calyces. Again, you got your renal vein, renal artery. See the difference? Get the blue stuff off of there. If you look at the renal artery there, you'll see this is nice and round. Look at the vein, you see how squished it is down here. Okay, then you got segmental arteries. Run through each section of the kidney as it goes around. Branches off the renal artery. And then your minor calyces, which drain into your major calyces. Okay. All right. Again, more gross view overall of the urinary system. Let's start with the kidney. You see the kidneys on both sides. Okay. Then you got your right renal artery and your right renal vein. There's your artery. There's your vein. It's a little more hard to tell, a little more difficult to tell on this because you can't see how it's rounded or it's squished that easily. So it's hard to see between the right renal artery and right renal vein, but they run together there. Then you have your inferior vena cava, which is kind of bluish color that runs alongside the aorta. You got your gonadal artery coming down through the inguinal canal. Okay. And you got your right gonadal vein running right alongside of it. You got the adrenal glands on top of the kidneys. You can see each one. Okay, those are your suprarenal glands or adrenal glands. You have your left renal artery. Okay, and you have the aorta, which is in this case, since it's below the diaphragm, it's inferior to the diaphragm. It's the abdominal aorta. Okay, above the diaphragm is right here. Above that diaphragm, it's the thoracic aorta. Okay, so here's your abdominal aorta. Then you have your ureter. Ureter runs from the kidneys into the urinary bladder. Remember, it goes back behind the vas deferens and enters a posterior part of the urinary bladder. You can't see it entering it. It enters posteriorly in that trigon area. Then you have your left gonadal vein, and then you can see the urinary bladder right down here. All right. This is the section of a male urinary system on the side. You can see the urinary bladder, which sits right up here. Okay, there's your urinary bladder. Coming off the urinary bladder, you have remember the urethra in male. The urethra connects the urinary bladder to the outside. Okay, the female urethra only has one part, the urethra. It runs from the vagina to the external orifice. The male urethra has three parts. Okay, right when it leaves the urinary bladder, it sits on top of the prostate gland. As the urethra runs through the prostate gland, that's the prostatic urethra. You can see it right there. Then becomes the membranous urethra as it runs through the bulbal urethral gland, which is a small gland that fits right there. So the membranous urethra is very small. Okay, then it goes through the spongy urethra. The spongy urethra travels the entire length of the penis and exits out to the external orifice. Okay, that takes care of that, Okay, and there's two erectile tissues basically that fill with blood for an erection. There's a corpus spongiosum and a corpus cavernosum. The corpus spongiosum runs along the length of the penis on the inside. On both sides of that, there's only one of the corpus spongiosum. There's two corpus cavernosums. Those run along the side of the corpus spongiosum. Okay, and one last slide on the urinary system. And this is going to be the female urinary system. Okay, you can see the ovary, which sits right there, little nodule right there. You can see the fundus of the uterus. The fundus of the uterus is the top part of the uterus that connects to the round ligament. Okay, that's the fundus of the uterus. Okay, then you have the body of the uterus. Then you have the cervix of the uterus. So the uterus has three parts. The uterus sits on top of the urinary bladder. Okay, there's a fundus, a body, and a cervical area. Okay, and that's where the fetus develops. That's why the fetus is developing. The farther along the woman gets during pregnancy, the more she has to pee. The smaller the urinary bladder gets because it gets squished, and you can see it. You can see as that uterus gets larger, as the baby develops, that urinary bladder is going to get squished on. Okay? So there's your urinary bladder. There's your body of the uterus on top. The pubic symphysis, this is the bone that's sectioned in half here. This is the pubic symphysis when you cut, that allows it, with the cartilaginous tissue, that allows it to expand during childbirth. Okay, then you have your urethra that runs from the vagina. We can't get it right here, but this is your urethra. Urethra runs from the vagina, which is right here, down to the external orifice. Okay, here's the vagina. Right there, and there's your urethra that runs to it. Vagina goes from there. Then the anus, then the cervix of the uterus, we talked about, and then the rectum. Okay. I think I said that backwards. The urinary bladder connects to the urethra and drains out. The vagina is its own opening, okay, connecting up into the uterus. Okay, then those are 3 openings right there. I think I said that wrong. All right, does that make sense? Any questions on that? If not, we'll go to the quizzes for it. All right, look at those. Which arteries are highlighted here? There's the renal artery, segmental artery, interlobular, or cortical. Well, this one here, this is the renal artery. Okay. Can you see the difference between arteries and veins? Look, I know it's not labeled here, but see where my marker is? This is your artery. See how round and basically open it is? And this is the veins. You know, kind of squished down. Again, arteries are high pressure systems, so they stay open. Veins are low pressure systems, they squish down. So this is renal artery, renal vein. So what's this artery connecting right here coming off the renal artery?
Segmental.
Segmental, perfect. Segmental comes off the renal artery. Okay. Which blood vessel is highlighted? Let me turn off the highlights, you can see it. Okay, what does that look like?
The renal.
It looks at the renal artery, right? Instead of the renal vein. That looks more rounded. The vein like is just behind it where it's squished down. That looks like the renal artery to me. Yep. Okay, show highlights again. What's that pointing to? But they like the renal artery in this class, don't they?
Renal artery.
Yeah, renal artery, and then segmental vein coming, segmental artery, renal vein below it. So that'd be your renal artery. Okay. And what's that pointing to? Let me turn on the highlights. You can see the whole area it's pointing to.
Spongy urethra.
I would doubt it, just because at the tip here, you see how this winds around at the tip?
Okay.
The spongy urethra would go straight down, right? Would be a tube that connects it. So this is the one that runs down the center. This is the corpus cavernosum. These are the ones that are paired. And this is a erectile tissue that becomes engorged with blood that is singular and run right down the middle along with the spongy urethra. Like you said, it travels the same path as spongy urethra, but the spongy urethra would be thinner and it wouldn't come back up here at the very tip of the penis. Okay, so this would be the
Corpus spongiosum.
corpus spongiosum. Correct. Okay, and this would be the, turn off the highlights. And again, this is the one coming into the kidney, and it's the more squished one. It's not as rounded. So which would it be?
Renal vein.
Renal vein. Perfect. Okay. And this is coming out. This is the tube here at the end. Again, this is your
Ureter.
this is a minor calyx, the major calyxes. Here's your renal pelvis, and this renal pelvis feeds into the what?
Ureter.
Ureter, right? Let me make sure it's highlighted right. It looks like the ureter or the, shoot, could be the renal pelvis. The renal pelvis is usually right here, so I would say the ureter. Yep. Okay. Renal pelvis is just right here. It's hard to distinguish between the two, but this is your renal pelvis in this area, and this is feeds into the ureter. Looks like the two. All right. What are those part of the kidneys? Okay. Are those your pyramid, your calyces, your vessel, or your ureters?
Those are the pyramids, I think.
I think you're right. Those look like the renal pyramids to me too. Because your minor calyces are down here, your interlobular vessels are down here, and your ureters way down here. So I would say that'd be the renal pyramids. Perfect. Okay. What structure is highlighted here? These are what,
Segmental.
I don't think they're arteries. No, they're tubes. They're not arteries.
Major. Wait, is it?
Let me see where they're highlighting. Yeah, because here's your renal pelvis. This right here and drains into your ureter. So these would be your major calyxes. Your minor calyxes should be up here. If this looks somewhat like your major calyces. Yep. Perfect. And that is looks like a black hole. You really can't see that real well. I can't see that real well.
Renal pelvis, I think.
Yeah, this is the renal pelvis. Perfect. This is the renal pelvis area where it feeds into the ureter. Here's your ureter, and you kind of see it's kind of a dark photo. This is area right here. It feeds right into the ureter. That's your renal pelvis. Okay, renal pelvis. Correct. Perfect. All right. And what's that sits on top of the kidney?
Adrenal glands.
Adrenal glands or suprarenal glands. All right. And that is pointing, what structure is highlighted? Let me see what's actually being highlighted here. Oh, okay, the whole thing. Let's try and figure this area. So what would that be? What would be the inner part of the kidney is called what?
Medulla.
Medulla. Yep, perfect. Medulla. Number 12. Again, what structure is highlighted here? This is the, let me turn the highlight.
Corpus cavernosum.
Corpus cavernosum. That's the ones that's the erectile tissue that engorges with blood that runs on both sides. Okay. So one that runs on both sides is a corpus cavernosum. Okay. And what structure is highlighted here? What structure do the major minor calyces feed into? And
The
then
ureter?
into the ureter is right down here.
Oh, okay.
The renal
That's your
pelvis.
ureter. What is it?
The pelvis. The
Pelvis. Renal pelvis. Perfect. The renal pelvis feeds into the ureter. All right. What vein is highlighted? Okay. Could be the renal vein, arcuate vein, corticoid vein, or the interlobar vein. So here's a renal artery. So here's your renal vein. I'd say that still continues at the renal vein. I don't think it breaks up into anything else.
Isn't it the interlobular? It's like in the middle.
Yeah, but the
It's more towards the top.
Interlob. I can't even.
interlobar. The interlobar vein. The only reason I'd say it wouldn't be that is because there's more than one interlobar vein. There'd be more than one blue area. Because the renal vein, the interlobar vein feed into the renal vein. So if it was marked as more than one, I'd say that'd be the interlobar, but I think it'd be the renal vein.
Okay.
But it could be an interlobar vein.
I only
I
think
think
it's right in the middle.
Yeah, I think they have more than one. So I would guess renal vein. Incorrect. It's interlobar vein. You're right. Because interlobar vein, but it runs in the middle, but run down here too, and down here as it drains each of the lobular systems. So that'd be your interlobar vein. And then feeds into the renal vein right below it right here. Because here's the renal vein coming across. Okay, so that's your interlobar vein. Should have listened to you, huh?
No, don't listen to me. I don't know.
All right, what are those things?
Kidneys.
Okay, that we should get. Those are kidneys. All right. And what structures are highlighted here?
Major calyces.
That looks like the major calyces. I tend to agree with it because this is your renal pelvis. That's your ureter, and your minor calyces drain into the major calyces. So that is the major calyces, correct. Okay, this is the cortical area of the kidney, and it says.
That's the outside.
Right.
That was a joke.
Which artery enters the highlighted regions after branching from the arcuate artery? So after the arcuate arteries, what branches into the cortical areas of the kidney?
Cortical radiate artery.
cortical radial arteries. Oops. My phone's turned off. I need to turn off my phone.
Potential spam.
Yeah, I get those all the time.
I get that all the time too. Decline it. Okay. We're back to normal. All right. So which artery did you say it was? The cortical radial arteries?
Yes.
Okay, let's check that. Perfect. Okay. So the cortical radius branch from the arcuate arteries into the cortical areas of the kidney. Okay. Which arteries branch from the highlighted vessels? Which arteries branch from? Okay, so here's your renal artery right here. Which arteries branch from? The interlobular, the arcuate, or the suprarenal?
Is it the last one since you're hovering over it?
I'm hovering over the arcuate artery. Because the interlobular branches for this looks like the interlobular artery is coming off the renal artery. So which ones branch from this would probably be the arcuate arteries. Well, interlobular. The question's worded, which arteries branch from the highlighted vessel? Because here's your renal artery. This is your interlobular artery. So it's worded funny. So these are the interlobular arteries branch from the renal artery. Yeah, I don't like the question's worded weird. I wouldn't count that question. Okay, which of the following function does not occur within the highlighted structures? Okay, the highlighted structure is the medulla, right? Okay. So what does not occur there? Concentration, resorption, filtration, or secretion?
Secretion?
Secretion. Filtration occurs, resorption occurs, concentration occurs, secretion. I would agree with you. No, filtration. I'm trying to think. The filtration occurs in the nephron, but some of the nephrons, like the juxtamedular, extend to the medulla. So I don't think that's a good answer either. Secretion doesn't occur in the nephron, but secretion occurs going into the minor calyces from the medulla. So there's your secretion. Filtration occurs in the nephron loops. Resorption occurs in nephron loops, and concentration occurs in the nephron loop when water is taken out of it, which is your descending convoluted tubule. So I think all four occur in the medulla. Most of the filtration occurs in the cortex because your nephrons are mostly in the cortex, but because your cortical nephrons make 85% of your nephrons. And those are
80-something% was in the cortex, wasn't it?
right. But there is 15% of those juxtamedular where they extend down to the medulla. So some does occur in the medulla too. So we'll count that as a good question that we got. All right, what is the function of the highlighted structure? What's the highlighted structure?
Kidneys.
Kidneys. Okay, what do? They recycle red blood cells, production of new red blood cells, remove toxins from the blood, or production of the parathyroid hormone.
Removal of toxins from the blood.
I'll hover over the right answer here. Okay, remove toxins from the blood.
Deltoid.
Deltoid, there you go. When in doubt, just circle deltoid.
I always remember it because it's like they always say, "Oh, that's the number one thing to fail when you drink too much."
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's do one more quiz, and we'll go on to the reproductive system. All right. So which blood vessels highlighted there? I'll hover over it.
Renal vein.
That's your renal vein.
Can you do that on Monday?
On Monday, we just kind of hover over the right answer. Renal vein. Okay, because you see the renal artery in front of it, that's nice and round. Behind it's a little bit squished, that's your renal vein. All right, what structure is highlighted here?
Medulla.
Medulla.
Infiltration doesn't happen there.
15%, not a little percentage does. What structure is highlighted here? Let me turn off the highlight, see what it is. Okay, it's one of the tubules. It's flared open, kind of hard to
Major.
see. What's that?
Minor calyces.
I would say the minor calyces, just because this is flared open. It's kind of hard to see because the major calyces we down here, this is pointed right here where that's flared, that calyces flare open. And it feeds into the major calyces, into the renal pelvis, into the ureter. You can see what path it would travel right there. So that would be the minor. I think that'd be the minor calyces. Yeah. Number 4. Okay. Which one of those tissues is that?
That is the spongiosum.
Corpus spongiosum. That's one that's individual rather than the pyramid. The pyramid of the corpus cavernosum that run on the side. So that is the corpus spongiosum. And turn on the highlight here. What are those draining into? Okay, they're not arteries. They look like they're tubules. So
Minor.
perfect. I'd say the minor calyces. Yep. Because you can see the major one's right there below it. So that's, I think that's perfect. Yep. Minor calyces. Perfect. Good answer. 6. What blood vessels are highlighted? Yeah, see,
Renal veins.
I say the renal veins.
But they're going to say interlobar veins.
Yeah, interlobar is right here. So, but I say this is the renal veins.
Yes. Or interlobular. I think that's how Ethan was saying it.
Must be the interlobular then. Okay. What did we say? They were renal veins? Renal veins. Yep. Got it. And which structure is highlighted here? This is the,
Urethra.
okay, yeah, because here's the vagina. Here's the, here's the vagina over here. This is a urinary bladder, and that feeds down to the external opening. Okay, and this is the vaginal opening right here. So that's a urethra. And remember, the females have only one, the urethra is only one sex tip. That's a urethra. Males have 3 sexes in their urethra. Okay, that one is what?
Renal pelvis.
Renal pelvis. Perfect. What structure is highlighted there? I can't even see it. I'll turn on the highlight.
The urethra.
Right, and this is a urinary bladder, right?
It's not the spongy and it's not the membranous. It's the other one.
What glands are running through?
The prostate.
The prostate.
One that goes to the prostate.
Prostatic. There you go.
Yeah. Good logical deduction. Prostatic urethra. Perfect. Number 10.
Ureter.
Ureter there.
You're getting quick.
Yeah. All right. This is the, what structure is highlighted? Okay, those look like, let's see. I turn them off.
Interlobulars.
The interlobular arteries. Perfect. I'm going to pronounce like that from now on. All right. 12. What structure is this?
Urinary bladder.
Yep, that's a urinary bladder. Oops, I didn't mark. There you go. And what structure is there? Highlight. What are those little guys?
Minor calyces.
minor calyces. Okay. And let me turn the highlights. Oh, I thought it was pointing to the kidney, but it's not. It's pointing to something else. What's that pointing to?
Right renal artery.
Okay. It's kind of hard to see. Then you turn the highlight on again. I assume it's the right renal artery.
I would agree.
Okay. Agrees to that. Perfect. And this is the
Renal artery.
renal artery.
That's the new deltoid.
That's the new deltoid. Oh, there it goes. Got the right answer. And this is pointing to the
Gonadal arteries. It looks like it's more on the inside than the outside.
yeah. I thought it was making a loop there at first, but it's not. I don't think it's the gonadal arteries. It's not the ureters. It's not the renal artery. It's gonadal arteries or veins. I think are arteries.
Artery.
Because it's more closer to the middle. Can't remember what the anatomical
Yeah,
for middle, but
more closer to the midline. Renal arteries.
there you go.
Yep. Those are gonadal arteries. And those are the, oh, wait a minute. Which smaller structure drains into the highlighted structure? So what's being highlighted?
Major calyces.
So what drains into those?
The minors.
The minor calyces. That one's right. And what structures are the highlighted structures? Okay, so these are the,
The renal pyramids. Or no.
so what structure is separated by the highlighted structure? Major calyces, minor calyces, major calyces.
Pyramids.
I would think it could only be the renal pyramids because the pelvis and renal sinus, major calyces and minor calyces suffer, but yeah, I would say the renal pyramids. Yeah, perfect. What is contained in the highlighted structures? What are the highlighted structures?
Minor calyces.
Okay, so what's in the minor calyces?
Human stuff. I don't know.
Human stuff. What flows out of the kidneys?
Urine.
Urine. All right, and what is an infection of the highlighted structure called?
Renal pelvis.
It's not gastritis. It's not pleurisy. I'll give you those. So it's either the first or the fourth one. It's not the first one.
It's the fourth one.
Yeah, you got it. Highlightus. Yep. Perfect.